What up, life? Yesterday, chilling on the couch, watching a movie. You know what I mean? Um, Went on Twitter, saw some very horrific things. Charlie Kirk. Y'all don't know who that is the person who goes to university rallies basically and basically debates with college students about his conservative opinions. Now, when I saw the video, I almost dropped my phone because of how disgusted that video was. I don't really have an opinion on it. I don't want to have an opinion on it. Um, but I do want to watch this video. Blackie Speaks always breaks things down. So I don't know, man. It was traumatizing. I know some details, but I don't know the full. So we're going to get into this Charlie Kirk's death, what it means for society. 2 hours ago, Blackie Speaks. Let's go, man.
Now, I want to talk about the death of Charlie Kirk and what it really means for society. I'm sure most of you guys have already seen the story. It's one of the biggest headlines right now, but for anyone who doesn't really know who Charlie Kirk was a conservative, right-wing political activist, social media personality, businessman, and author. He founded Turning Point USA, which is a youth organization that promoted right-wing politics. And over time, he became one of President Donald Trump's closest allies. Much of his influence came from social media, where he built a massive following and used that platform to spread his message. Now, yesterday on September 10, at just 31 years old, Charlie Kirk's life was cut short. He was shot and killed while speaking at Utah, and speaking in public in this fashion was, something that he did very frequently. This news sent shockwaves through the political world, the social media world, but really the world in general. It's reaching a lot of different places, and that's why I wanted to touch on it today and give my take on it. By the way, I still don't have my equipment at the moment. I'm, traveling, as some of you guys might know. I'm in Berlin, Germany.
Berlin. All right, Blackie.
My setup looks very different.
Speaks.
I actually don't even have a setup
That
right
sounded
now,
wrong.
but I thought it was very important for me to touch on his story right now because it just happened, and I think my voice definitely needs to be heard on this particular topic. So make sure you guys just rock out with me on this one, okay? And just focus on the message.
Why so,
I want to give you a rundown of everything that's happened so far, so let's cover this together. So yesterday on September 10, 31-year-old Charlie Kirk was shot and killed while speaking at Utah Valley University. He was doing a tour around the United States, and this was part of his American Comeback Tour. And according to reports, around 3,000 people were in attendance when it all unfolded. According to eyewitnesses, Charlie Kirk had just been asked a question about mass shootings when shots rang out. And by the way, the video of it happening has been going viral. I've seen it, and honestly, I really regret even laying my eyes on that because it was absolutely horrible. Man. Charlie was struck in the neck, and chaos broke out as students scrambled for safety. Charlie Kirk was rushed to a nearby hospital, but he did not survive. Authorities say they believe it was a targeted attack, which...
And one thing I do want to say is I saw videos on Twitter too about after he got, that his team just carried him in like aggressively to the back of an SUV to transport him to a hospital. The amount of liquid that was coming from his neck, there's no way in hell somebody should be carrying him like a rag doll, man. If anything, that made it worse. Like, why isn't there ambulances on site for this kind of stuff, man? Like, these are political acts. This is like an extremist talking kind of, if you ask some people. It doesn't make sense to me.
That doesn't take for a genius to come up with. At one point, the FBI briefly held 2 people, but both of these people were released, and so right now the shooter is still at large. So as we speak, no one is officially in custody, and investigators are reviewing surveillance footage to track down the shooter. By the time this video is out, I'm sure that person will be apprehended. If not, I'm sure they're pretty close to getting apprehended by the authorities. Unless they, of course, decide to leave this earth willingly, let's just put it like that, which that wouldn't be very far from what...
Oh no, most definitely. They are definitely going to do something cowardly. These types of shooters are always, they're not in the right mind. Most of them are going to find a way to commit, you know what? There's no way that they're going to find this man alive. And if they do, it's over with. That's all I got to say.
Usually happens in situations like this, right? The US President Donald Trump ended up responding to this death by saying that he was filled with grief and anger due to what happened because he was very close with Charlie Kirk.
To my great fellow Americans, I am filled with grief and anger at the heinous assassination of Charlie Kirk on a college campus in Utah.
Now, this story has blown up for a couple of reasons, right? First of all, we're talking about a political assassination, which is exactly what happened right here. And historically, political assassinations have left a deep mark on society, no matter who the figure was. So we're not just talking about a person, we're talking about someone who represented something, a very large amount of people, stood by. And it's also a very big story for the mere fact that Charlie Kirk was a very popular political figure, right? Now, I had seen his name in a few different places, but personally, I actually was not very familiar with him. And I believe I had seen a picture with him and Donald Trump. Again, they're very close, right? I actually had no clue who he was aside from the little photo here and there that I had seen. And I believe I had seen his name in, a few different places. So I really did not know who he was, apart from the fact that he was a conservative activist. That I did know because I did see some things that he put up on Twitter. And I did do my due diligence by researching, some things about Charlie Kirk, right? Because if I'm going to cover something, I do want to do a foundational level of research. That's something that I stand by. And honestly, I did see a lot of clips and I did not really agree with what I was hearing, right? That's my personal opinion. With that being said, he did leave behind 2 children and a wife. So with that being a fact, I will not use my voice or platform to say anything negative about him, his legacy. The point of this video is not to create more division. The point of this video is to have a real conversation together. And personally, if I use an opportunity like this to push division or let my biases shine, because as human beings, we all have our own biases, let's just say that I wouldn't really sleep very well. Now, what I did want to speak about is what this particular death means for society in general. I think something like this, which is a political assassination, let's call it like it is, I think this kind of thing can have a very strong ripple effect, which is something that I believe is going to happen in a situation like this, right? And one thing that I think is going to happen, one of the ripple effects that I think this is going to cause is extreme levels of political unrest that we cannot come back from as human beings. I'm sure most people know how bad things have gotten in the world politically, right? And this is regardless of what side that you're on. There's a level of division that's happened these days that progressively keeps getting worse for several reasons, which we're going to get into right now, right? And one of the things that I really feel, just hitting on that point, right? One of the things I feel very strongly about is how politics divides us as humans like no other force, especially today when so much is being done in the name of politics out in the open right in front of us. There are people in power who get there by making promises to the public, promises that in many cases were never meant to be kept. And what ends up happening is regular people carry the weight of that division. We argue, we fight, a lot of times we even spill blood amongst each other. In this particular case, it's very clear that someone disagreed with Charlie to such an extreme point that they decided to end his life.
And on that, another token on that, a person that did this definitely disagreed with Charlie on an extreme level. But at the same token, what did that have to do with anything for that person? Like, you're telling me this Charlie Kirk was saying so much things that it got to this person's head to think, I want to shoot him? Like, you're waking up still. Whatever he's saying is, you can't tell me this person that did this is going to sleep crying every night because of what he's saying, or he has posters of this dude on his wall with X's on his face. It doesn't, just like with this whole political presidential thing, this doesn't affect some people's lives, and they make it affect their lives because they have nothing else better to do. That's my take.
Now, whether you agreed with what the man said or not, one thing about Charlie Kirk, and this is something that I can instantly tell about him, is that he really stood on what he believed in. Does that mean that I think he should have been taken out for his beliefs? Absolutely not. I think that is insane to even say. Because once you start to justify the death of another human being simply because of their political stance or personal beliefs, that's when you step into a very slippery slope, which is something that I've seen a lot of on social media regarding this particular situation right here. And sometimes I wonder if people generally realize how much power they give away when they let violence become the answer. Because when you think about it, when someone feels the only way to deal with a person they disagree with is to take them out, that's not strength, that's weakness disguised as control. And here's the part that scares me. It doesn't stop with just one person. It doesn't stop with just Charlie Kirk, right? That's something that a lot of people might believe, but it really doesn't, because once that door is opened, it sends the signal that anybody can be next. Politicians, artists, which artists, we've particularly seen that in hip-hop, but the violence in hip-hop is obviously for a completely different reason. We don't have to get into that right now. Whether it's politicians, artists, activists, or even regular people who just happen to say the wrong thing to the wrong crowd. The truth is, regular people get taken out every single day, and most of the time society doesn't even blink. They just become another statistic. And that is another conversation itself as well. But it ties back to what we're seeing right here. This has me genuinely worried about where things are headed. I'll just be completely honest with you. Because one of the last things that I'd want to see is innocent people being targeted and taken out simply because of their beliefs. And again, this has nothing to do with whether or not you agreed with Charlie Kirk or not. You cannot look at what happened to this man and say that he deserved to go out like that. I think that is the craziest thing that I've seen being pushed on social media. I understand that you might not agree with another human being on a foundational level, but that doesn't make it right to justify them going out like this. You know, something that I heard a while back is that the action of one action can cause a chain reaction of something else, which is something I heard from author Ron Wills. I'm wondering what kind of world is something like this going to create, because consider how many people have been exposed to this particular story right now, and what is that going to do to the minds of other human beings who see this going down. Overall, I think as humans, we've been very desensitized to death due to the fact that we've...
That's the word, desensitized. Thank you, Blackie Speaks. That's what I was looking for. This world has become so desensitized, and I can even say I'm a part of that. I mean, with what I just saw, I don't think I could ever see anything worse than that. But that's definitely what this whole social media negativity frenzy has been about. People are desensitized. Until it happens to somebody close to them, they're gonna keep doing the same thing, man. It's just a domino effect, especially in the US. Sad. It really is sad.
Seen this happen over and over again, whether it's historically or due to what the media promotes to us. And you know what I really hate? Like, this story reminds me of the fact that I really hate that we as humans put our differences at the forefront and let that divide us, instead of coming to an understanding which overall could create a better world. And although a lot of us have these devices and we have access to all this information now, the saddest part is seeing how many of us don't have access to our own humanity. And you can see in the response for this particular story, because I think celebrating the death of another human being who died in this horrible manner is pretty demonic. On the other hand, condolences are never a right, because at the end of the day, if you're someone who, let's say you are a popular figure like Charlie Kirk was, you're going to have people who loved you, you're going to have people who hated you. And so the ones who loved you, obviously they're going to praise you when you pass away. And then on the other hand, the people who did not agree with you, because you had these extremely strong beliefs and you really stood for what you believed in, a lot of those people are going to look at you and say, screw this guy, we're happy that he died. So condolences are never a right. It is, however, the right thing to do when someone...
And matter of fact, fuck all of this, man. These are the ones in the comments, Shade Room, all of those people talking about, anyways, what's for dinner? What are y'all doing? Like, trying to disregard everything. Those are the same people talking about free King Von and free Melly. The hell? But this is the...
gets taken out like this. I generally just hope we don't see this kind of action spilling into everyday life. In a lot of ways it is, but one thing people got to keep in mind is when something that's this public happens in this fashion, it is going to have an effect on society, and it's not for the good. Because when it does, the division that we're going to have to live through is going to get so bad, and the cost of that is going to be something that we cannot afford. Because when I think about how I want the world to look, right, honestly, I don't really think about myself, because I'm determined to, create the best life possible for myself. But I am, however, worried about the helpless ones, which for me, that's the kids. White, black, purple, green, whatever. We're going to have to grow up with the dysfunction that the adults in this world are creating for those kids to live in. I think Charlie Kirk's death is going to start something. And honestly, I don't think it's anything that's good, because the reaction to this has been extremely chaotic. And I'm just wondering if this political unrest is going to be something that we're going to be able to come back from. I do want to offer my condolences to his family, because I can't really imagine the trauma his children are going to have to work through after seeing something like this happen to their dad right in front of them. So keep that in mind when you're in the comment section. This man, at the end of the day, did have a family. He did have a wife, and he had 2 children that he left behind. You have every single right to not shed a single tear if that's not what you want to do. You don't really see me shedding any tears, do you? But if you have an ounce of humanity inside of you, you'll recognize that once we keep justifying the death of...
And I'm sorry for keep pausing it, but that's exactly what Kirk used to be talking about. A lot of these people don't have moral integrity. They don't have morals. They don't have no piece of human in them to even... You don't have to shed a tear. Like Blackie said, you don't have to shed a tear. Just don't say shit. Shut the fuck up. That's it. Why do you feel like you need... I can't, man. I really can't.
Someone simply because we don't agree with their beliefs, we open a door that cannot be closed. And that's the danger right here. Because when society decides that disagreement equals elimination, there's no limit to who can be next. At this point in society, I think we should be above that. But at the end of the day, what do I know, right? Maybe nothing that I'm saying is connecting in your mind. Maybe I'm just completely full of shit, right? I don't know. And that's my message for this particular video right here. I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say about this particular story. And this is one of the biggest stories on social media right now.
Yeah, it's
by far the biggest conversation on social media and in the world right now as we speak. And I want to share my perspective on this particular matter, even though I literally don't have my equipment and I'm traveling and I'm really busy. But I really
Hey, we love you,
want to
Blackie
make sure that I
Speaks.
share my message in times like this, because I think it's very much needed to just come on here and speak
Right.
sense. I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say. I do want to say rest in peace to Charlie Kirk, and I hope his
Okay.
children end up fine, because
And
seeing
his wife.
a parent go out
It's
like this
traumatizing.
in such a public fashion, I cannot imagine what that's going to do to their minds and their hearts and their spirits. Anyway, drop a comment, a like for the algorithm, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm just gonna reinstate it. It's kind of sad, the world that we're living in. I mean, the US in general. Um, I mean, no disregard for human life. No disregard for human life. Like it's just to the point to where people are becoming so desensitized, like he said, to the point to where it's just like, oh, death happened, and we seen the video, how horrific it was. He deserved it. Doesn't make sense to me, man. It just doesn't. If you have any part of heart or any part of moral integrity, then you would understand that even anything to that extent of what happened to him and the visual of that should still spark a, you know what I'm saying, something in you to just leave it alone if you don't agree with it, or yeah, just leave it alone, man. It's just sad, the world we live in. But I don't know what y'all think is gonna happen in the future, man. Sad, but